Bowl on Sunday from 1 to 3. The cost is $25 per person. Visit GreatRiverRescue.com for more information. Boy Scout Troop 25 will hold its annual all-you-can-eat pancake breakfast at First Presbyterian Church in Bemidji, Sunday from 8 to noon. The cost is $8 for adults and $4 for kids 6 to 12. Do you have questions or comments about programming here on Lakeland PBS? If so, we want to hear from you. Be sure to tune in for Lakeland PBS On Call, a live program in which you can call in with your questions and we'll answer them on the air. You can submit questions by sending an email to oncall@lptv.org or by calling 800-292-0922 during the live broadcast. See it on Lakeland Prime, Friday, April 12th at 8.
I put my life on the line. My country won't let my husband live here.
It's gonna be with you and the babies.
You can't cross. I don't want to take that chance.
How many hoops do you have to jump through for your family to be together?
See it Monday night at 8 on Lakeland Prime.
The mantra was to be of service to the race.
A people pushed forward.
In education, employment.
But the future.
They used mob terror.
Looked a lot like the past.
The goal that this remains a white man's country.
Reconstruction, America after the Civil War.
On Lakeland Prime, Tuesday night at 8. Lakeland PBS thanks the George W. Nielsen Foundation for generously supporting our Building for the Future campaign. Watch Lakeland News at 10, sponsored in part by Home at Heart Care, a Minnesota human services provider with offices in Clearbrook, proudly supporting personal care assistants and homemakers throughout northern Minnesota who bring heart to their clients' life and home. Programming on Lakeland PBS is brought to you in part by the Brainerd Family YMCA, strengthening the foundations of community. The Brainerd Family YMCA, online at brainerdlakesymca.org. Mid-Minnesota Federal Credit Union, your local full-service not-for-profit financial institution, now part of the Co-op Shared Branch System for access to over 5,400 credit unions nationwide. And the members of Lakeland PBS. Thank you.
Good evening, and thanks for tuning in to On Call here this evening on Lakeland PBS. My name is Bill Sanford. I manage Lakeland PBS, and joining me this evening I have Jeff Hanks. He's our programming and production manager, and Dennis Wyman, our news director. And we're here tonight to take calls from viewers just like you. If you've got questions about Lakeland PBS, things you want to know about our programming, about the station, give us a call or send an email to oncall@lptv.org, and we would be happy to address your questions. So please go to the phones or give us a call or go to that website, or I'm sorry, get up to your email and send us an email and ask a question about what happens here at Lakeland PBS. You know, we did have a couple questions come in earlier. We've been promoting the show a little bit, so we've got a couple questions. We'll get started until a few live ones come in, but I'm going to start with Jeff here. Jeff, one of the callers, or a question that did come in, is why doesn't our primetime schedule always match what is promoted by PBS?
Yeah, sure. I think a good example of that is Monday evenings. Independent Lens, or POV, a lot of times airs at 9 o'clock Central Time. And a lot of times those Independent Lens or POVs run 90 minutes. And that would push our 10 o'clock newscast back. And that also happens on Friday evenings a lot of times on the national feed, where programs run past 10 o'clock. And really, here at Lakeland, we've been doing Lakeland News for 20 years, and it's the local production that we put our vast majority of our resources into. So consistently pushing news back a half an hour to an hour just is not a good benefit to our viewers. It's the most viewed local production we have by far. So sometimes, you know, those, for instance, those Independent Lens on Monday nights, they might be promoted within some other shows, but they're not going to show up here on Lakeland because of that odd link they're pushing our local productions back. And again, just you got to keep in mind that PBS stations like ours, we're all local independent stations. We're members of PBS, but we do have control of our own schedule to a certain degree. We try to carry a lot of the main prime time, the Sunday evening Masterpiece and Wednesday Natures and those things. We generally try and keep those on at a consistent time, like PBS national feeds, but we can alter the local schedule as, to fit our local productions.
All right. Well, thank you, Jeff. I've got another question here, but for you, Dennis, this time. Why is there so much change with your on-air news staff? It seems like there are new people every year. What's going on with that?
That is true. There are new people every year. And we're, as you know, a very small PBS station, one of the few PBS stations in the country that actually does a local newscast. And we do it with a very small budget. And the reporters we hire and some of our anchors are all entry-level positions. They're students from graduating a lot of times this spring now, will be entering the workforce. And we're a small market station, and we hire directly out of college most of the time. Once in a while, we'll get somebody that has some experience, but generally they're entry-level reporters, and they have a one-year contract when they join us here. And at that point, the experience they've gained from being with us, they're looking to move up to bigger markets usually. Not everybody are like me and Stacy. Both of us have stayed here for 20 years now. We enjoy the area. We love living up here, and we've stuck around. But a lot of our reporters come from all over. We have a reporter right now, Sherelle Moore, who is from Las Vegas. We have Malak Kitab, who is actually from Arizona. We've had reporters from Hawaii, Miami, San Diego, all over the place. And they're looking to take that next jump. So from here, a lot of times they move into a medium-sized market, and they keep working from there, and they move up. And we actually have 6 or 7 of our former sports directors that are now in top 30 markets across the country, which is, I guess, a real accomplishment for them and something for us to hang our hat on, too, that we're identifying this young talent and working with them, and they're achieving great things. And we'd love to keep them all. If we could take an all-star lineup from all our reporters over the last 20 years, we'd really have something. But the exciting thing is when we bring reporters in from college, they're just starting their career, they're very excited. It's all new. They have a lot to learn, and we work closely to improve as they go. But they also have a lot of enthusiasm, which is fun to work with. And that's, I guess, the rundown on kind of how we work. We'd love to keep people longer. It's difficult when people enter a new city, a new beat. They're learning who the main players are in their beats that they're in charge of reporting. And after a year, they've kind of got it down. They know people. They've developed some contacts, and then boom, they're out the door, and we bring in somebody else for that beat. So it's a bit of a revolving door, but that's the nature of small market television. We've embraced that. And we're really proud of the reporters and anchors that have gone on to bigger things from here. And we look forward to the next ones that join us here over the next year.
All right. Well, thank you, Dennis. They're probably moving here for the weather then, huh?
A lot of them do. They enjoy snowstorms in April, and a lot of them come up here for that.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, it seems like most of them have had pretty good attitudes considering what where they've come from, and a lot of them come in the winter.
Right.
So, yeah. So anyway, we've got, well, first let me say, we're here tonight to answer your questions. So if you're watching this, wondering what's going on, we're doing an on-call program. We've got Dennis Wyman, our news director, Jeff Hanks, our programming and production manager, and I'm Bill Sanford. I'm the CEO of Lakeland PBS. And we're here to just talk about Lakeland PBS and answer your questions. So give us a call or send an email to oncall@lptv.org. And I've got one that I can tackle here. I'm thinking about dropping cable TV to save money. What do I need to pick up Lakeland Public TV over the air, and what will I receive? Well, that's a great question. It seems like a lot of people are cutting the cable nowadays. They may subscribe to like a Netflix or Hulu or something like that, and then they want to put up an antenna and pick up over the air. Lakeland PBS broadcasts 6 different channels over the air. We have our main channel that most of you're watching us now on our main channel. We have 5 other channels too. We have a channel called FNX that has programming that is geared and covers Native American and Indigenous programming. We have Lakeland Kids channel, which is a 24/7 kids channel, all great educational PBS Kids programs. We have a channel called Create, which is how-to programs 24/7, and that is very popular as well. We have a channel called Lakeland Plus, And that is a channel that you can tune in any time of the day or night and not have kids programs. So things that you enjoy during prime time on our main channel, Nova Nature, those kinds of things are available all day on Lakeland Plus. So that is also a very popular channel. And then we have a channel called the Minnesota Channel. And that is a unique partnership, really something unique in the whole country. Here in Minnesota, we've got a great partnership with Twin Cities PBS and the other stations around the state. And we carry regional programs that are made by all the different stations in the Midwest here. And then we carry House and Senate gavel to gavel during the legislative session here in Minnesota. So a wide variety of programs. You know, the other thing that you can look forward to with our over-the-air signal is it isn't like the old days of snowy TV. You know, digital TV, the picture comes in great. Crystal clear, great sound, and you also have a program guide so you can see what's coming up, and that's all broadcast over the air. So you can receive all that, and typically it takes an antenna. You might want to put an antenna up in your house. If you're really close, you might get by with an indoor antenna, but we typically recommend to put an outdoor antenna. It's a one-time expense. Once you put it up there, you're done, and you'll be able to watch Lakeland PBS for free, and there are other channels around the area that you can get as well. So again, you know, we're here looking for folks to call in or send an email. Now, you know, you're not going to hear the calls coming in live. What's going to happen is we've got a couple of people screening calls, and we do that for liability reasons because people could say some things on the air that wouldn't be good. So you can call in your question, though, and our folks will answer the phones, and they'll just send us a quick email, and we can get to those questions right away. So I've got another question here for Jeff. About programming. Why don't you air more British comedies, Jeff?
Yeah, okay.
Why are you holding back on these people?
Holding back on British comedies. Yeah, that's a familiar question. Heard that a lot over the years. Most times, though, I seem to get individual suggestions like, why aren't you carrying Last of the Summer Wine or One Foot in the Grave or, you know, those type of things. British comedies, of course, they're very popular with PBS viewers across the country. Great productions, and there's the library of British comedies is vast. There's a lot of different examples. You know, we've carried a lot of them over the years. But the thing with the British comedies, British dramas, those are syndicated programs. Syndicated programs, we have to purchase licensing fees, pay licensing fees for those syndicated British comedies above and beyond what we're paying for our other programming services. You know, we pay a national fee for the PBS content. We pay a couple other different services for basically access to their libraries. But the British comedies are above and beyond that we have to budget. And frankly, being in a small rural market, our acquisition budget for syndicated programs like that is just smaller. A lot of folks, I'll get a call or an email from folks down in the Twin Cities area. They comment that TPT, Twin Cities PBS, you know, carries, you know, 6, 8, 10 different series of British comedies throughout the year, where we're carrying 1 or 2. Well, that really boils down to the budget. Right now, we're carrying Doc Martin, and we're carrying that because people sent me lots of emails and lots of phone calls requesting it, and that's how we get those. Just contact us. We love to hear from our viewers. If there's a favorite series you'd like to see or some suggestions, let us know, and we'll look into that. And when that cycle comes around, the rights run out for the current series we're in, we'll investigate and look for the next series to invest in. But we need to know what you want to see to make the right investment. But basically, hopefully that answers the question.
All right, thanks, Jeff. You know, we had somebody just email in a question. What happened to the show Lakeland Currents? And I can take that on. You know, Lakeland Currents is something that we still do. Ray Gildow hosts Currents down in central Minnesota, but we had Bethany Wesley that was hosting it out of our Bemidji studio here. And Bethany ended up taking a different job. She was a full-time mom for a while and just working for us part-time. And she took on a full-time job and didn't have the time to continue. And we've been kind of searching around, struggling a little bit to find somebody to host that show, because it's just it's a part-time thing. And you know, if you know of anybody that might be interested in hosting Currents, somebody that's up on current affairs and would be interested in doing that, we'd love to get that show back on the air. It is a paid position. You're not going to get rich doing it, but it's a fun thing to do, I think. Hosting that, you get an opportunity to visit with a lot of shakers and movers around the region, and so if it's something that you'd be interested in, contact contact us at the station, and we'll continue to search, and we definitely want to get that in full swing again, so we're having shows out of both the Bemidji and the Brainerd Lakes area. Also too, we're in the process of remodeling our studio down in Brainerd, so with hopes of even doing more local productions, maybe similar things out of the Brainerd studio. So that's something that you'll be hearing more about when we move forward as well. I think I've got another question here for Dennis. Let me see what we've got here, Dennis. How do you decide what cities to do stories from on Lakeland News?
Good question. A lot of it depends on what's happening in those cities, what the stories are for the day. Our viewing area for Lakeland News and Lakeland PBS is very big geographically. We basically cover from Warroad and Roseau, Baudette, all the way down to Royalton, Little Falls, Browerville, over to Wadena, about Foston that way to the west, Grand Rapids, Aiken that way to the east. So there's a big area there, a lot of little towns, a lot of really cool towns in our viewing area. We have offices in Bemidji and Brainerd. We have 2 reporters out of both of those offices, and they're in charge, the 2 reporters in Bemidji are in charge of finding stories from the northern half of our viewing area. Our 2 reporters in Brainerd are in charge of finding stories for the southern half of our viewing area. And each day is different. Each day there's maybe something big going on in Wadena that day, and that's our lead story for that day. We really try to address our entire viewing area, although it's really hard to be day-to-day in a lot of communities just based on the size of our viewing area. Bemidji and Brainerd, we cover a little few more stories from those communities. That's where we're based out of. It's just easier for us to get to, and we cover that. But we do a good job of getting out to all the other towns, and we've got some other good-sized towns in our area like Grand Rapids, Little Falls, Park Rapids, and we do our best to get to those stories. If anybody has any story ideas, a lot of times we rely on tips from viewers for ideas and what's happening in those communities. We can't be everywhere, and we can't know everything that's going on in our viewing area. So if you have something really neat happening in your community, it can be a hard news story, it can be a feature, anything like that, we'd love to hear from you, and you can reach us at this number. We also have a direct news line that you can find on our website. You can also email us from our website as well. But a lot of days, it's just weighing what's happening that day, where the more compelling story is. Sometimes we have to make tough decisions, and we can't get to everything, although I think we do a pretty good job of getting to a lot of the big stories that happen in our area.
All right. Well, thank you, Dennis. We've got another one here asking about our over-the-air signal. I picked Lakeland up over the air, and sometimes the signal breaks up. Why? Why does that happen? It could be a lot of different things. It could be if you've got an antenna, the direction that it's pointed may not be just absolutely correct. Depending upon whether you're in our northern or our central Minnesota coverage areas. In northern Minnesota, our tower site isn't in Bemidji. It's actually up by Black Duck. It's just southeast of Black Duck, about a mile. And our tower down in central Minnesota is west of Gull Lake. Your antenna needs to be pointed in that direction. A lot of times people will be trying to get, like, let's say you're down in central Minnesota, they may have their antenna pointed towards channel 12, which is Hackensack, and they may be picking us up off the back side or the side of the antenna. It really is somewhat critical to aim the antenna properly. The other thing, too, is, maybe you're using an indoor antenna and you're just too far away. It is a broadcast signal, and it does require a certain level of signal for the TV to work. And, people will say, well, it was absolutely crystal clear yesterday, and now it's breaking up. The interesting thing about digital broadcasts is there's no snowy picture. You either get a perfect picture or you get nothing, and it doesn't take much of a change in the signal. It either decodes it or it doesn't. So in the old analog days, you could go from a really good picture, and then it would get a little snowier and snowier and snowier, and you could still really watch it down to the point where you were just watching snowballs pretty much. But digital is either on or off. It's like a light switch. There's no in between, and there's no dimmer. So you could have a picture that looks perfect, and your signal could be really on the ragged edge. So maybe you just need a little bit better antenna, or need to re-aim that antenna. So those would be a couple things that I'd suggest that you try. It looks like we've got another one for Dennis too here, Dennis. We really enjoy watching Lakeland News through the website live stream when we're in Arizona in the winter. Sometimes we can watch it live, or we can't watch it live at 10, and would appreciate if you could put the entire newscast online so they can watch it after, the next day or something.
Mm-hmm. Something we've had discussions about.
We have.
Yes, and that's still being discussed at this point. It's something we're aware of, and we would like to be able to do that. There are some rights issues with some of the video we show on our newscast that can't stay up for other than the live portion of the newscast. We're still examining some of those rights issues on that, and there's a possibility we may be able to do this in the future. But at this point, it's still a work in progress. And I agree, it would be nice to not have to tune in right at 10 o'clock and be able to see the show, even if you tune in at 10:30 or 11 or even the next day. Now, we do put all our local content on our website. So our stories are all there segmented. And a lot of people enjoy that because sometimes you're tuning in for one thing in particular, or your grandson was on the highlights that night, and you wanted to see the basket we put on the air that night. So those are all available on our website, segmented like that. But the entire newscast at this point is something we're still working on adding, and we'll see what happens in the future.
All right. Well, thank you, Dennis. Again, just to remind folks that are tuning in, we're here tonight to answer your questions. So we've got Dennis Wyman, our news director, and Jeff Hanks, our programming and production manager, and I'm Bill Sanford, I'm the CEO. And we'd love you to either phone in or email in your question, anything to do with Lakeland PBS, and we'd be happy to take a stab at answering it. So, fire up the email or give us a call. Again, these calls aren't taken live on the air, but we've got folks answering the phones, and they're shooting emails to us, so we will get your question directly and answer it as quickly as we can. Jeff, question for you. Does Lakeland broadcast programs submitted by local independent producers?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the answer is yes, it can happen. Occasionally I get a phone call or an email or an inquiry about a local individual who either has some submission or a program idea that they want to produce or maybe have produced. And the answer is yes, we're open to taking a look at the content, from independent producers around the area. We can't make any guarantees at that point. We do have to screen the material, and a lot of times we'll run it past our community advisory council, our management group, that sort of thing. But certainly there is the option to broadcast some of the independent producers from around the area, and not just the national services. So yeah, that is an option. Independent producers, if we do get a submission and we work with them and decide it's something we're interested or able to air, then we'd go ahead with a broadcast agreement, which basically would allow, give us the rights to air that program and assure that the producer has done everything in line with, as far as having the correct content for that piece of video. But the answer is yes. We do take submissions, and we're happy to take a look at those things.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Got another question here. I dropped cable and bought a Roku. How can I watch your channel on my Roku? Do you want to take that, or do you want me to?
Go ahead.
Well, I'm actually involved in a national committee with PBS that deals with streaming, and it is something that is high on everybody's priority at PBS. Right now, a lot of it is rights issues of what programs we can and can't stream live, and PBS is working through that and trying to clear rights for the programming. Currently, we don't have the rights to actually stream all the content that we air. We can broadcast it over the air, but we can't feed it out over the internet. Then it's really complicated when you start getting into it, because once you feed it out over the internet, depending upon how you do it, people anywhere on the planet can get it. So they're also going to require something called geofencing, which means, inside of our market, people will be able to get our station, but not outside of it. So there's some technical hurdles that we're working with, as well as some legal and rights issues with the programming. But, it's something that we have a keen interest in doing, and something that we realize is, the direction that a lot of folks are moving, and we want to be there and be available. And we're working on that, and we'll try to get to that as quickly as we can. I think we've got another one for you here, Jeff, about Common Ground. How do you get ideas for Common Ground? And can I send you, and can I give you some ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. Common Ground, along with all the other legacy productions we do, the Arts, Culture, Heritage Fund, the Minnesota State Grant programs, they've been on the air for 10 years now, going on. This is the 10th season of Common Ground, and absolutely, yes. Countless subjects within Common Ground in our documentaries have been suggested by our viewers. Absolutely. If you watch Common Ground, at the end there's an email, legacy@lptv.org. That's a great way to do it. Otherwise, you could certainly give us a call at any time. You could use the phone number on the screen. That's our main number. You could talk with myself, or you could talk with our managing producer of Legacy Productions, Scott Knudsen, is a great guy to talk to. He works directly with that program, of course. So yeah, we welcome and encourage viewers to submit ideas for Common Ground. We've covered a lot of different artists and musicians and historians around the area, but there's always more. There's always more to cover. So please let us know.
All right. Well, thanks, Jeff. Another question here about DirecTV. I pick you up on DirecTV. Why can't I receive all 6 of your channels on DirecTV like I did on cable? Well, they switched from cable. Okay. Interesting. DirecTV is required to carry our main channel, but that is it. They're not required to carry all of our multicast channels, so they don't. And typically across the country, DirecTV only carries public television's main channel, not the multicast channel. So while we would love to have DirecTV carry all of our channels, it's just not available. If those channels are something that are important to you, and maybe some other local channels that DirecTV doesn't carry, you might want to consider. Paul Bunyan Communications has got a great cable service, or Midco here in the Bemidji area, or if you get down in the Brainerd Lakes area, there's Charter Communications and CTC Communications. I think Arvig just carries they don't carry all of our multicast channels. They're kind of in the Walker and Central, kind of between the Bemidji Brainerd area. But, I think Schoberg, that has cable systems up north, carries most of our digital channels as well. So the local cable providers do a pretty good job of carrying all the digital channels, but not so much on either Dish Network or DirecTV. Dennis, I had an interesting question come in about Lakeland News again. You had commented about how many folks we've gone through, reporters we've gone through. This person is curious. They said they enjoy seeing the new folks come through and watching them grow, and was just curious how many people we've had come through the program. How many reporters have we got? We've been doing news for 20 years now.
Right, and I just added that up in the last year for our 20-year anniversary. It was upper 70s, and I think we've passed the 80 person mark now. So we've hired 80 different people. They've all gotten their start here. Most of them, I should say, probably 98% of them have gotten their start with us. And it's been exciting. It's been fun to watch them grow and move on to their new jobs all across the country. And some of us have stayed. Stacy was with us from day one. She was an intern at Bemidji State University when we hired her. She tried out for our weathercaster position at that point, and we ended up hiring her at that point. And what a great decision that was. She's really grown throughout the years and does a great job with the local weather. I know a lot of people really appreciate the local weather forecast for this part of the state. Kind of was a dead zone up here until Lakeland PBS brought Lakeland News on the air, and it's been exciting to be able to serve it with local weather, local news, and local sports.
All right, yeah, interesting. It has been fun to watch all those folks grow. We've just got probably another 20 seconds, so I don't know if we've got time for another question. But Jeff, what would it take for us to have more British comedies? Maybe a few more members that would support the British programming?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, those syndicated Britcoms, they are expensive, but if people give us a call and, let us know with their support, that's how it's made possible.
That's right.
That's how it's made possible.
Sure, and if you've got a business and are interested in British comedy, a lot of folks watch that. We know a lot of folks watch that. Maybe you want to help underwrite and support that kind of programming. That would be awesome. So, it's been fun here doing this evening, guys. Thanks so much for being here with us, and we're going to wrap up here shortly. I think we've got about another 10 seconds, Glenn. Okay. Yep, I guess we're ready to wrap. So thanks so much for tuning in to On Call. We're going to be doing this again next month, so watch your schedules, and we'd love to have your calls. And between now and then, if you send in your questions, you can do it at any time. If we didn't get to it on air, we will definitely get back to you. Again, On Call at lptv.org. Send your questions in. and we can save some of them for the next time we air, and we'll also get back to you. We'll email you back if we didn't address those questions today. So thanks so much for tuning in.
Coming up tonight on Lakeland PBS.